Welcome back to the Deep Dive. We're here to give you that tactical blueprint, the one you need to turn those iconic super-crowded spots into something, well, actually personal and memorable. And today, oh boy, we're tackling a big one. It's probably all over your Instagram feed. The Sagano Bamboo Forest in Arashiyama, Kyoto. We all picture it, right? Those giant green stalks going way, way up, the amazing light cutting through. Just like total silence and calm. But let's be real. The reality can often be more like shoulder-to-shoulder shuffling, especially if you go at the wrong time. So our listeners sent in a bunch of really practical stuff, guides, photo tips, timing breakdowns. Our job today, boil it all down into a plan you can actually use. Think of it as the cheat code to skip the worst of the crowds and actually feel that legendary atmosphere.
Yeah, and this isn't just about, which train to catch. If you just wander in thinking it's a casual park visit, you're probably setting yourself up for disappointment. What our analysis shows is you really need to understand a couple of things. The physics of light, basically, for good photos, and just the predictable pattern of tourist buses. It's tactical. It's about optimizing the whole visit right down to which station you use and, seriously, what time that alarm goes off.
Okay, let's unpack this then. So before we dive into all the nitty-gritty details, the big question first, is it even still worth it?
Right.
With tourism booming, is the Sagano Bamboo Forest worth the, frankly, significant effort it takes to see it properly now, say in 2025?
Look, based on everything we've seen, the answer is yes. A definite yes, but. And this is a huge but. There's a condition. A non-negotiable one, really. The forest is worth the visit, but only if you are super disciplined about timing, stick to the schedule, and pair it strategically with what's nearby if you don't do that. Honestly, the experience might just feel like waiting in a very green, very tall queue. Not quite the spiritual vibe most people are hoping for.
Right. And the main problem we're trying to solve, the thing that shapes this whole strategy, is that just showing up during normal tourist hours, it just doesn't work anymore.
Exactly. That's the consistent message. The sources all describe that window from, let's say, late morning, maybe 9:30 a.m. onwards, through mid-afternoon as just rushed, noisy. And visually, it's compromised, too.
Yeah.
That's when the big tour groups roll in, day trippers arrive. The main path gets absolutely saturated. If you arrive then, in that 3-4 hour window, you're basically missing the magic you came for.
Okay, so if peak time is out, what's the sweet spot? What's the strategic window we need to aim for? The sources seem pretty aligned on this.
They really are. It boils down to two very specific, pretty narrow opportunities if you want that atmosphere. And, decent photos without 1,000 heads in them. It's either right after sunrise or just before dusk starts to settle in. That's our target zone for maximum impact. All right, let's get straight into the plan for beating the crowds. Or maybe, more accurately, just avoiding them altogether. If what you want is that feeling of serenity, you have to know when the crowds peak. We're talking about avoiding that big wave that really starts building around 9:00 a.m.
Okay, but setting an alarm for 5:30 a.m. on vacation, that's a tough sell. I mean, people might be jet lagged, right? So what are the exact times the sources recommend? And how bad is it if you show up at, say, 7:30 a.m. instead of 6:00 a.m. sharp?
That's fair. And yeah, we need to be realistic. There are trade-offs. For that really optimal, almost empty feeling, you got to be aiming for 6:00 a.m. to 8:00 a.m., right when dawn is breaking. Now, if you push it to 7:30 a.m., okay, you're already going to see more people, definitely the serious photographers, other early birds, but you're still way ahead of the main crush. Where it really starts to degrade noticeably is probably between 8:30 a.m. and 9:00 a.m. That's when you feel the shift. The other option is the evening, waiting until after 5:30 p.m., maybe closer to 6:00 p.m., or even a bit later as dusk approaches. But, and this is key, this timing has to work with your calendar strategy too. The sources really hammer this home. Visit on a weekday if you possibly can. And stay well clear of Japan's two massive peak seasons, cherry blossom in spring and the autumn leaves, the Koyo season. During those times, the crowds are just amplified. Even that 6:00 a.m. start becomes competitive.
Okay, think about those shoulder seasons, maybe early spring or late autumn. That 6 a.m. start means it could be genuinely cold, right? How does that change what you need to bring?
Oh, it changes things quite a bit, and it ties right back into being properly prepared. In late autumn or winter, 6 a.m. in Kyoto, it can easily be near freezing or even below. So when we say bring an extra layer, it's not just, a suggestion. It's pretty much mandatory. We saw notes about people who skipped the hat, gloves, maybe a proper jacket, and they just ended up rushing through because they were freezing, which kind of defeats the whole purpose. Being comfortable lets you actually stay and soak it all in.
And that early start isn't just about dodging people, is it? It's about actually experiencing the sound and feel of the place, the things that make it famous beyond just the pictures.
Absolutely. The sensory stuff is huge. Those bamboo stalks are incredibly tall, incredibly dense. When all the human noise is gone, that's when you finally hear it. The sources talk about two sounds mainly. There's the rustling way up high from the leaves, but then there's this deeper sort of unique creaking sound. It's the big, mature stalks swaying in the breeze. That sound is Sagano. And trust me, at midday, it's just completely drowned out by chatter and footsteps.
This is where we get into that optical physics idea you mentioned. Why is the timing so linked to light? What makes the morning light so special?
Right. What's fascinating here is how the light interacts with the bamboo. It's almost like the light is part of the landscape's design. If you want that classic, iconic Sagano look, you need very specific light conditions, soft, diffused, coming from an angle. So at dawn, the sun's low. That means you get these soft beams, these shafts of light cutting down between the tall stalks. It creates this really dramatic vertical feeling, almost like a cathedral, emphasizing the height and that soft light. It also just makes the greens look richer, deeper, more saturated.
Okay, so what happens visually if you miss that window? You mentioned midday light blowing out the greens. What does that actually mean beyond just having crowds in your shot?
Yeah, blowing out is a good way to put it. Midday light is coming from almost directly overhead. It's much harsher, much more contrasty. So your shadows get really dark, almost black. And the bright spots, the highlights on the leaves or stalks hit by direct sun, they get overwhelmed. They lose all detail, become pure white. That's blown out. This washes out those beautiful deep greens, makes everything look kind of flat and high contrast. It loses the depth. Honestly, getting a good photo becomes technically really difficult. So yeah, the consensus is clear. Morning light is just superior for that signature look because it's softer and comes from a better angle.
Okay, back to the practicalities. Let's say someone listening just cannot do the 6 a.m. wake up. Maybe the schedule's too tight, maybe the jet lag is killer. Are there any backup plans? Any way to salvage some serenity?
Yes, definitely. There are contingency plans built right into the area's layout, which is helpful. If you have to be there during the busy times, the advice is shift your focus. Get away from that main wide path that runs between Tenryu-ji and Okochi Sanso. That's where everyone funnels. Instead, actively look for the narrower secondary paths. Specifically, the sources mention exploring the paths north of the Nonomiya Shrine. They tend to be way less crowded, okay? They might feel a bit different, maybe more enclosed, like a tunnel of bamboo, but they can offer that quiet you're looking for. And, if the absolute main goal is just the feeling of walking through any tall bamboo grove, remember there are other lesser-known ones elsewhere in Kyoto. They don't have the same fame, but they guarantee solitude.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, if time is tight, maybe sacrifice the most iconic photo spot for guaranteed quiet in a slightly different part of the same area. Smart, like risk management for your trip.
Okay, let's switch gears from the atmospheric stuff to pure practicalities, logistics. How do you actually get in? What does it cost? First bit of great news, especially for budget travelers. The grove itself, totally free, no entrance fee. It's a public path, not a ticketed attraction.
The access times are pretty good too, which helps with our early morning or late evening plan.
Yeah, it's technically accessible 24/7, but, and this is a really important but that comes with a big safety warning. The sources are very clear. There is absolutely no lighting in the grove at night. None. So if you're aiming for that dusk visit, after 6 p.m. maybe, you need to plan your photos and, crucially, your exit route while there's still some light. Once it's fully dark, navigating those paths, which are mostly packed earth and gravel, gets genuinely tricky, even a bit hazardous. And the atmosphere you wanted, it's just dark.
Right. And what about just basic prep, especially given we're pushing for that super early start? Shoes, clothing.
Oh yeah, prep is key. Like I said, the paths are packed earth, gravel, maybe some slightly uneven paving here and there. It's definitely not a smooth sidewalk. So comfortable, sturdy walking shoes, non-negotiable, seriously. Forget the flimsy sandals or heels. Plus, early in the morning, especially outside of summer, those paths can be damp, dewy, maybe even a bit frosty in winter, so good grip is important. And as we touched on before, that extra layer for warmth is vital if you're going early, especially outside the hottest months.
Okay, transportation. Big one. If you're coming from Kyoto Station, which is where most people arrive, what's the absolute best, fastest way to get to Arashiyama? The overwhelming advice points to the JR train. Specifically, the JR Sagano Line, sometimes it's called the San-In line. You take that directly to Arashiyama Station. It's quick, like really quick, usually only 15, maybe 20 minutes from Kyoto Station itself.
And here's a huge bonus for many travelers, the JR Pass. It's totally valid on this route. So if you've got a rail pass, this trip costs you nothing extra. Big budget win right there. Just to quickly say why JR is usually better, the other options, like the little Randon tram or the Hankyu line, they often involve transfers, or they drop you off further away from the Grove entrance. The JR line gets you to Saga Arashiyama Station, and that puts you within a pretty easy walk of where we want to be.
Okay, so you hop off the train at Saga Arashiyama. What's the walk like from there? How long does it take?
It's pretty straightforward. From the station itself to the edge of the Grove area, you should probably budget about 10 to 15 minutes walking time. And knowing this is critical for that timing, if you absolutely must be in the Grove by 6:00 a.m. sharp, you need to be on that train, leaving Kyoto Station by, say, 5:30 a.m. at the absolute latest. You need to factor in maybe a slight delay, the walk. You don't have minutes to waste if you're chasing that perfect sunrise light.
Yeah.
Okay, so because we're demanding this really intense early start, the next puzzle piece is pacing. What do you actually do after you finish the Grove around, say, 8:00 a.m.? You need a smooth transition, right? You don't want to waste that early start by milling around. You want to leverage the fact that Arashiyama has a lot packed into a small area. And the most logical, most recommended next stop, it's got to be Tenryu-ji Temple.
Why Tenryu-ji? What makes it the perfect partner for our early morning mission?
Pure geography, mostly. Tenryuji's grounds literally border the main bamboo path right at the northern end, so you can walk straight out of one and into the other. Super seamless. Plus, the timing works perfectly. The temple usually opens its gates right at 8:30 a.m., so you finish the Quiet Grove experience just as the temple opens. No waiting around.
Makes sense. Okay, let's break down the practicals for Tenryu-ji. What's the cost? How much time should you plan for?
Right. Hours are typically 8:30 a.m. to 5:00 p.m., pretty standard. Admission for just the garden is usually around 500. If you want to go inside the temple buildings as well, walk along those cool wooden corridors, that's usually an extra 300 time-wise. The sources suggest planning for at least an hour, maybe 90 minutes, especially if you do both the garden and the buildings. You don't want to rush it.
And what makes Tenryu-ji, this UNESCO site, worth that time and money, especially right after the bamboo? What are the highlights?
The main event is definitely the Sogenshi Garden. It's this incredible example of Japanese landscape design. There's a central pond, and the cool thing is how it uses the mountains in the background, the Arashiyama Hills, as part of the garden view itself. That technique is called shakai, or borrowed scenery. It creates this amazing contrast with the bamboo path you just saw. Bamboo is all vertical, tall, linear. The garden is expansive, horizontal, with rocks, water. Just a totally different, beautiful vibe. Oh, and a quick note for anyone interested in the art. Check the schedule for the Hato, the Dharma Hall. It has this famous painting of a dragon on the ceiling, the cloud dragon. But access isn't always guaranteed with the standard ticket. Sometimes it has special opening days or might be closed. So if seeing that dragon is a must for you, definitely check the official temple website beforehand.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting, especially for folks prioritizing calm. If someone is willing to pay a bit more to guarantee quiet, the sources mention Okochi Sanso Villa as maybe a better, quieter alternative to Tenryu-ji.
Yes. This is a fantastic option, though definitely pricier. Okochi Sanso. It was actually the private villa of a famous old Japanese silent film star, Denjiro Okochi. And he apparently spent like 30 years creating this incredible garden on the hillside. It's much less visited than Tenryuji. You get these lovely, quiet paths, different little garden rooms, and frankly, some better viewpoints looking out over the river valley.
But is that extra cost, you said it's higher, really worth it just for quiet?
For the right person, absolutely. Admission is around 1,000, so yeah, roughly double the basic Tenryuji garden fee. However, and this is a key detail, that price almost always includes a cup of proper matcha green tea and a little traditional Japanese sweet served in a lovely tea house within the garden. So you get the guaranteed quiet, the beautiful paths, the great views, plus this really nice calm moment of reflection with tea. For a lot of people, that whole package is definitely worth the extra yen. It's like buying guaranteed tranquility.
Okay, fast forward a bit. It's maybe 10:00 a.m. now. We've done the Grove, we've done Tenryuji or Okochi Sanso, but now the main Arashiyama area is probably getting seriously crowded, right? We need an escape plan.
We do, and the perfect strategic move, the Sagano Romantic Train, also called the Taroko train. This is just brilliant timing. It's this charming kind of old-fashioned train that runs a scenic 25-minute trip along the Hozu River Gorge. It's beautiful in its own right, but crucially, it physically removes you from the most crowded part of Arashiyama just as things are ramping up.
What's the ride itself like?
Yeah.
What do you see?
It really depends on the season, which makes timing your whole trip important again. The sources say it's absolutely stunning in spring with the cherry blossoms along the riverbanks, and maybe even more famous in autumn when the whole gorge is just blazing with fall colors. Summer is lush green canyons, winter is more stark and dramatic. It's always scenic. But the strategy is the key part here. Finish the grove and your temple villa visit before 10:00 a.m. Then head for the romantic train station. By boarding it around 10:30 a.m. or so, you are literally riding away from the bottleneck just as the main wave of tour buses and day trippers is arriving. It keeps your day flowing smoothly, keeps the stress levels down.
Smart. Before we tie the whole road together, any other quick mentions for that late morning slot if the train doesn't appeal?
Yeah, definitely. The classic landmark is the Togetsukiyo Bridge, the moon crossing bridge. It's right there, easy to walk to after the temple area, spans the Katsura River. Worth a look. And if you're up for a bit of a climb, there's the Iwatayama Monkey Park up on the hillside. Takes maybe 20-30 minutes to walk up, but you get great views back over Kyoto. Plus, well, monkeys. It's a popular choice to fill that late morning gap before heading elsewhere. All right, we've got all the pieces. Now let's assemble the master plan, the integrated strategy. And honestly, connecting this all back to managing your time and energy, that first move, how you approach the growth from the station, it's actually super important.
Okay, lay it on us. What's a crucial route tip? Why does our entry direction matter so much?
This is probably the single best piece of practical advice we found, and it could save you like 30 minutes of annoying backtracking.
Yeah.
Here it is. When you arrive at Saga Arashiyama Station, plan your walk so you enter the grove area via Tenryu-ji Temple's north gate. Just picture the map for a second. The main bamboo path runs roughly north-south. Most of the key sites, like Tenryu-ji and Okochi Sanso, are on the eastern side. By going into Tenryu-ji first, right when it opens at 8:30 a.m., you can walk through its beautiful garden and then exit directly onto the northern end of the main bamboo path. This means you walk south down the famous path while it's still relatively quiet, and you naturally end up near the Chikatsuki Bridge and the other attractions at the southern end. If you do it the other way, you walk up the path, maybe see the temple, then you have to walk back up the now crowded path just to get out or get to the train. This route avoids all that backtracking.
Ah, that makes total sense. It's about flow. Okay, so let's put it all together. Give us the ideal minute-by-minute, step-by-step blueprint for a successful Rashiyama morning.
Okay, here's the optimal sequence, aiming for that peak experience. Step 1. Dawn arrival. Be at Saga Arashiyama Station between 5:45 a.m. and 6:30 a.m. Walk briskly towards the northern end, near Tenryuji. Step 2. Grove first. Get into the main bamboo grove path right at 6:00 a.m., maybe even a few minutes before. Use this golden hour, 6:00 a.m. to maybe 8:00 a.m. for photos and just soaking it in. If you're running late, maybe prioritize those quieter side paths north of Nanamiya Shrine first. Step 3. Temple transition. Around 8:30 a.m., as the early birds are finishing and more people start trickling in, head straight for Tenryuji's North Gate entrance right as it opens, usually 8:30 a.m. Spend a good 60 to 90 minutes exploring the garden, maybe the buildings. Step 4. Mid-morning choice. Between, say, 9:30 a.m. and 10:30 a.m., walk down towards the Togetsukiyo Bridge. Then make your call, maybe a quick look at the bridge, or head up to Okochi Sanso Via if you budgeted for that premium quiet experience. Step 5. Strategic exit. Sometime after 10:30 a.m., definitely before 11 a.m., make your move away from the main crush. Either board the Sagano romantic train for that scenic escape, or walk back towards Saga Arashiyama Station to catch a JR train to your next Kyoto destination. By 11 a.m., you want to be clear of the Arashiyama Central area.
Wow, that's detailed. But you can see how it works, right? Use the very best, earliest part of the day for the main free attraction. Then use the paid sites and the train strategically to filter yourself away just as the main crowds arrive. It really is a tactical approach. Okay, let's quickly touch on money again. Consolidate the cost advice. We know the Grove is free, but what are the variables people need to budget for?
Right, so zero cost for the grove itself. Your main budget items are the optional extras. Tenryu-ji, maybe 500 for the garden, or 800 total if you do the buildings. Or Okochi Sanso, which is more like 1,000, but remember that often includes the tea. The biggest money saver, though, use that JR Sagano Line. Especially if you have a JR pass, your transport to and from Kyoto Station is covered. And once you're actually in Arashiyama, walk. It's compact. Grove, temples, bridge, they're all walkable. Avoid spending extra on local transport if you don't need to.
What about those rickshaws you see everywhere? Are they worth considering?
The rickshaws, well, they definitely offer a unique experience. The drivers are often really knowledgeable, can point out interesting things, give you a bit of history. It's a personalized tour. But they are significantly more expensive than just walking. The sources basically say, Consider a rickshaw if you have mobility issues, or if you really value that guided narrative and want to splurge a bit. But for just getting around efficiently, walking is fine and much cheaper.
Final budget point. Kyoto often has those day passes for buses and subways. Is one of those useful for this Arashiyama plan?
Generally, no. For this specific itinerary, relying heavily on the JR line to get there and then walking around a general Kyoto City bus subway pass probably won't save you money. It might even cost you more. Those passes are really best if you're planning a day hopping between multiple sites scattered all across Kyoto City using buses frequently. For this focused Arashiyama morning, stick to the JR fare or pass and save your money for the entrance fees or that nice cup of matcha at Okochi Sanso. Hashtag OutTIO by day.
Okay, so what does this all boil down to? We've gone through the timing, the transport, the route, the budget. If we had to pick just two absolute essential, non-negotiable things for pulling off a truly great, serene visit to the Sagano Bamboo Forest, what are they?
It really comes down to just two things. Number one, strict timing. You just have to commit. That 6:00 a.m. window, maybe stretching to 7:30 a.m. at the latest, that is the absolute key for the light, the atmosphere, the lack of crowds. It's the difference maker. Number two, strategic pacing. Use those next steps wisely. Tenryu-ji opening at 8:30, maybe Okochi Sanso after. And definitely using something like the romantic train after 10:30 a.m. as your exit strategy. It's about flowing away from the crowds as they build.
That level of planning really seems like the difference between, a frustrating shuffle through a crowd and that genuinely amazing, almost spiritual experience people hope for when they see the pictures.
Exactly. You're essentially investing your effort, getting up early, planning the route to buy yourself better conditions. You're buying solitude, you're buying better light, and that fundamentally changes the value of the whole visit. This brings up an interesting final thought, though. We've talked a lot about optimizing for the visuals, the photos, the light shafts, but remember how we mentioned the sources highlighting the sound? That wind and creaking bamboo sound you only really get when it's quiet? They specifically mentioned dusk after 6:00 p.m. as another time for that. So here's the question for you to ponder. If your absolute top priority isn't the perfect Instagram shot, but rather pure serenity and locking in that unique sound memory, could that late evening window, maybe after 6 p.m., actually offer a deeper, more personal experience? Less competition for photos compared to sunrise, maybe a different kind of calm, focusing on the sound instead of just the sight. Definitely something worth thinking about when you plan your own trip.
That's a fantastic point to end on. Sometimes the best views aren't visual at all. Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.